NFTs have taken the world by storm in an extremely divisive way. Either you're someone who already owns one or even multiple, spending your hard-earned Ethereum on OpenSea, or you're on Twitter, laughing at all of these people that have seemingly wasted thousands of dollars on drawings of cartoon monkeys. But why are they so controversial? Well, mainly because while NFTs are touted as this marketplace for exclusive digital art, the vast majority of people view them simply as just another speculative stock market. It's not actually about the asset itself, it's about the intended profit it will hopefully net you. And while that may seem relatively harmless at first, NFTs also present lots of glaring systemic problems that are detailed extremely well in this video. But, for the sake of argument, let's forget about all that and focus on the minority of people that really are holding on to collections of non-fungible tokens and why they may choose to do so. Now, people have been paying excessive amounts of money on rare items for decades, whether it's high art, trading cards, or even CSGO knife skins. So what is so different about NFTs? Well, most of the average person's initial concerns arise from differences in opinion when it comes to the concept of ownership. Owning something means that you have the full rights to the use of whatever you purchased. And by strict definition, NFTs do meet that requirement. Once you buy one, that digital token is totally yours. It's even in the name. Something that is non-fungible is both unique and irreplaceable. And, in theory, because they are purchased over the blockchain, it is guaranteed that your transaction should always be certifiable and cannot be faked by an outside party. However, the reality is that NFTs are most commonly digital images, at least at this point, even though they can technically be anything. And because they are frequently sold at open auctions that are presented to the public, it doesn't take too long to realize that maybe, instead of spending $10,000 to own this drawing, I can just right-click, save as, and have it just the same. Even after auctions end, these pages stay up, all for people to return and download the image if they want to. Plus, people will post their NFTs on social media to display as their profile picture, but this just creates more places for people to rip the file from. Whether or not you think these pieces of art look good isn't even the point. The principle is that anyone can freely view content that you paid for. And for the record, when you buy an NFT, you do not necessarily own the art. What you actually own is a glorified hyperlink to it. So unless someone steals your token, other people viewing and sharing the image itself is totally legal. So why get one then? If anyone can save the digital file and have the contents of it on their computer just the same as the person who ends up buying it, then what's the point in being the one who pays for it? Well, how about this? I have a decent amount of physical copies of video games, and these days there isn't much reason to. Every game made and sold today is available for digital download on whatever platforms it is released to. Oh, well, many of mine are retro games, ones that were only ever sold as physical copies in physical stores. But many of these have also been re-released digitally on newer systems. Oh, well, that's not every game. Okay, but do you actually care to play every single game ever made, let alone have the time to do so? Plus, what about emulation? Sure, you can't play every NES title on your Switch, but for everything else, you could just download and play them for free on your PC. Sure, this technically isn't legal, but we all know that everyone does it and no one really cares. Oh, well, what about real hardware? I like to play in front of an old school CRT TV with the original controller in my hand connected to the original console. Well, you can still use your controllers just with USB adapters, some of which are actually official. Plus, many emulators come with settings to make your monitor display look like a CRT. Also, buying retro games is extremely expensive and they take up so much space. Hell, you haven't even played most of these yet. At the end of the day, shouldn't it be about experiencing the games themselves and not just throwing them on a shelf? Before I drown you in an already tangential story, clearly, virtually every argument for keeping around my games and continuing to collect them can be refuted. So why do I still buy them? The same argument applies to my vinyls. Why spend massive amounts of money on records, a good record player, a nice stereo, and quality speakers when you could listen to basically any song ever made on Spotify on any phone or computer you have for a consistent $10 a month? Plus, all of this requires maintenance. Record players, stereos, and speakers are electronic devices, which means they eventually break down and may need repairs. The needle gets duller over time and will need replacing. And most importantly, the vinyls themselves will become scratched and dusty, producing unpleasant sounds on playback, including skipping whole sections of songs. On top of all that, it's extremely impractical. There's not really a great way to play a specific track unless you just, by trial and error, figure out where you need to place the needle, so most of the time you're stuck listening to a whole album at a time. Plus, you have to get up and flip the disc to listen to the second half. You might even need to do this multiple times with multiple discs if it's a double LP. And if you're one of those snobs that wants to sit there and say, well, analog sound is better, stop it. Digital music is recorded at such a high sample rate that, in all reality, the human ear, for the most part, cannot distinguish the difference. So why is it that with all those downsides, I still own these? Now, obviously, retro video games and vinyl records do actually have differences from their digital counterparts because of their physical nature. The experience of having friends over, looking through the shelf, picking a game, and all sitting down in front of a giant tube TV is nostalgic and authentic. And taking the time to truly appreciate an album in full, hearing all the crackles from the record, is something that some people, myself included, occasionally enjoy. So yes, while digital copies are for the most part exactly the same for their content, physical copies give a different experience. But it's not even really always about that, is it? Many times we just want to own things for the sake of owning things. Do I actually flip on my turntable every time I want to listen to Billy Joel? No. Do I actually get out my PS2 every time I want to play Grand Theft Auto? No. A large reason why I own these is just because I enjoy the fact that I do. And that's the same principle with NFTs. What you get when you buy a CryptoPunk or an N64 cartridge or an original copy of a Beatles album doesn't necessarily need to be utilitarian in any way. Instead, for a lot of us, they act as novelties, things that we simply like the feeling of owning. And humans have kept novelties for centuries, especially now in this increasingly consumeristic modern world. In fact, that trend is why we have also seen the rise of minimalism, a complete overcorrection where people get rid of everything non-essential, sometimes going to extremes of living in tiny houses or vans. Even I have romanticized that lifestyle on many occasions. It seems like it would make everything so much simpler. But minimalism implies that we should only ever have the things that we require to survive. And for most of us, surviving does not equate to living. That's why there are also people like Marie Kondo teaching people about minimalism within reason, saying that we should throw out completely useless items, but even if something has no material use, yet it gives us joy, it's worth keeping, because that joy inherently makes it useful. Things should not be seen purely for their utilitarian value, but also for how they can help us feel mentally better in this difficult world we live in.
The new me is all about making things kind of neat and fun, and so this is a Philippe Starck juicer produced by Alessi. It's so much fun I have it in my house, but I have it in the entryway. I don't use it to make juice. In fact, I bought the gold-plated special edition, and it comes with a little slip of paper that says, don't use this juicer to make juice. The acidic, well, the acid will ruin the gold plating.
For many people, NFTs have personal significance because they have become another avenue to connect on the internet, with online groups forming around specific collections. And in a more abstract sense, when you buy into something like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, you are now part of an exclusive circle, including real-life celebrities, and that can make people feel as though they belong. Plus, they act as a sort of status symbol, proving that you have enough disposable income to drop on an original NFT, not just freely view a copy. Nonetheless, I have to reiterate that I do not think anyone should actually buy NFTs. They are absolutely made by wealthy and malicious scammers that prey on innocent and naive people. And they are also built upon technologies that create plenty of real-world problems that far outweigh the minor personal morale-boosting advantages they may provide. I just thought that they brought up an intriguing argument about how we as humans choose to be interestingly materialistic in our own ways. So bid on eBay listings of retro games, support your local record store, and buy anything else that brings you joy simply for the sake of it, within reason, obviously, because in the end, these things make us happy, and there's no room for negativity against them.